great weekend. I've had withdrawal symptoms on the weekend because I haven't been reading for you. So I'd love to hear how everybody's been, what's been happening for you. I really love reading the comments and hearing what everybody's up to, whether you are watching it on the replay or whether you are watching it live. It is always good to hear what your thoughts are as well. I have a lot of different things that I need to do today, so I am going to get into it quite quickly. And Woman of Sighs, thank you very much for the love heart, and somebody else also sending some love hearts, so appreciate that. It is wonderful having you all here. So yes, as I said, lots of different things to get done today. So we're going to start with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I still only have the Chinese version, but I might actually do some online shopping things later on. I might actually also pick up one of those in English that I haven't had for a while. So let's have a look. We read chapter 27 last time. Why the last cookie in the jar makes your mouth water. Let's have a look. And today we're up to 28. I cannot believe that it is already 4 weeks since we have started reading. That is unbelievable. And let's have a look. So today we're going to be talking about when you hear hoofbeats, don't expect a zebra, and it's called base rate neglect. And thank you to everybody that is sending all sorts of different interesting things here. And that is wonderful. So lots of people following today, which is really nice. There we go. Okay, let's get into the reading for today. This one should be another really interesting chapter. And good morning, Martin, as well, who is live with us this morning. So, Mark is a thin man from Germany with glasses who likes to listen to Mozart. Which is more likely, that Mark is A, a truck driver, or B, a professor of literature in Frankfurt? Most will bet on B, which is wrong. Germany has 10,000 times more truck drivers than Frankfurt has literature professors. Therefore, it is more likely that Mark is a truck driver. So what just happened? The detailed description entices us to overlook the statistical reality. Scientists call this fallacy base rate neglect, a disregard of fundamental distribution levels. It was one of the most common errors in reasoning. Virtually all journalists, economists, and politicians fall for it on a regular basis. And this is extremely true because we never think about what are the chances of something happening. We just look at it on base level. We just look at it from the point of view of, well, if somebody dresses a certain way, if a book looks like, if it has a certain cover, and we judge it based on that, rather than on what is actually going on, what is really happening behind the scenes. It is a very interesting topic. So here's a second example. A young man is stabbed and fatally injured. Which of these is more likely? A, the attacker is a Russian immigrant and imports combat knives illegally. Or B, the attacker is a middle-class American. You know the drill now. Option B is much more likely because there are 1 million times more middle-class Americans than there are Russian knife importers. Yeah, that's probably true. In medicine, base rate neglect plays an important role. For example, migraines can point, among others, to a viral infection or a brain tumor. However, viral infections are much more common. In other words, they have a higher base rate. So doctors assess patients for these first before testing for tumors. This is very reasonable. In medical school, residents spend a lot of time purging base rate neglect. Thank goodness that doctors do that, because imagine if they didn't. The motto is drummed into any prospective doctor in the United States is, when you hear hoofbeats behind you, don't expect to see a zebra. Because there are going to be no zebras in America, but there are going to be horses. That's an interesting one. Which means investigate the most likely ailments before you start diagnosing exotic diseases, even if you're a specialist in that. Doctors are the only professionals who enjoy this base rate training. Regrettably, few people in business are exposed to it. Now and then I see high-flying entrepreneurs' business plans and get very excited by their products, ideas, and personalities. I often catch myself thinking, this could be the next Google. But a glance at the base rate brings me back down to earth. The probability that a firm will survive the first 5 years is 20%. So what then is the probability that they will grow into a global corporation? And it is so interesting because very often people will talk about Google did this, so if I do this, my business will be able to do exactly the same thing and have the same kind of successes and all of that kind of stuff. And this isn't the case at all. So the interesting thing around that is that each company does something that is unique to them, and just doing the same. Yes, there is something called modeling, which means that you can follow somebody who's successful and do something similar, but you still need to do it in your own way. And if your personality doesn't fit what you are doing, if I just follow Google and I do the same things Google does, but it doesn't fit my personality, it doesn't come across right. And so people don't buy into it. And if I'm doing the exact same thing as Google and starting the same business as Google, then business already has the loyal fan base. And I would need to create a new tribe of people that fit what I am doing. So let's say, for example, that Google has a product that that's based around coconut water, just because I've got coconut water here. But I don't like coconut water, and I'm not about coconut water. So if I start a company that does coconut water, people already love Google. So I need to find people that might not be interested in coconut water. They might be interested in guava juice, for example. So by doing the exact same thing, it's not going to work. I need to tweak it to what works for me. And maybe I need to tweak the whole thing and be different to Google in the first place. And then you can start to see where companies are going to be successful or not, because just because they look like they're going to become like a next Google doesn't mean that they will. And a lot of companies, they'll talk about the fact that, oh, if you would have bought Google at this time, but there were other companies that were going to potentially be the next Googles, and only Google, out of those hundreds of companies, the only one that actually managed to become something. So you can't just say, well, I'll just buy a bunch of random small companies, because there's a very good chance that none of them will become the next Google. So what then is the probability that they will grow into a global corporation? Almost zero. Warren Buffett once explained why he does not invest in biotech companies. How many of these companies make a turnover of several $100 million? It simply does not happen. The most likely scenario is that these firms will just hover somewhere in the middle. This is clear base rate thinking. For most people, survivorship bias, which we discussed in chapter 1, is one of the causes for their base rate neglect. They tend to see only the successful individuals and companies because the unsuccessful cases are not reported or are underreported. This makes them neglect the large part of the invisible cases. Imagine you're sampling wine in a restaurant and have to guess from which country it comes. The label of the bottle is covered. If, like me, you are not a wine connoisseur, the only lifeline you have is the base rate. You know from experience that about 3/4 of wines on the menu are of French origin. So reasonably, you guess France, even if you suspect a Chilean or Californian twist. With wine, it's even more interesting, though, because wine experts say that they know lots of different things about the wine, but when you give them a white wine with red dye in it, and they can see that it's red, but it's actually white wine with red food coloring in it, they actually describe it as if it's a red wine. And so they can't tell the difference. So it's really interesting how we don't know all of these different things. And I see a couple of questions. I'll come back to those in just a minute. Sometimes I have the duty, we're almost finished with the chapter, and then I'll come back to what's my Instagram and a couple of other questions that I can see. Sometimes I have the dubious honor of speaking in front of students of elite business schools. When I ask them about their career prospects, most answer that in the medium term, they see themselves on the boards of global companies. Years ago, both my fellow students and I gave the same answer. The way I see it, my role is to give students a base rate crash course. With a degree from this school, the chance of you landing on a spot on the board of a Fortune 500 company is less than 0.1%. Not 1%, but 0.1%. No matter how smart and ambitious you are, the most likely scenario is that you will end up in middle management. With this, I earn shocked looks and tell myself that I have made a small contribution towards mitigating their future midlife crises. True to a degree, but obviously there is a chance. And if you reach for the stars, you can still reach the moon. So that is always a good thing to keep in mind as well, that it's really important to put out a lot of really amazing things so that you can work towards something And if you set the goal really high, then you might not fully get there. But if you're expecting that and you know that you might not fully get there, then you're at least going to save your expectations and save your midlife crisis in that sense. But it is good to set the goals. And otherwise, see, I think that Rolf can be a little bit pessimistic in that sense, that he will more or less talk people out of even going for it. Whereas I say go for it, but don't expect that you're going to reach the end goal, but you might still achieve something really amazing on your way there. But it's also important to realize what is really important to you. So if you want to be on the board of directors of a company, of a Fortune 500 company, maybe that will stress you out so much, and it's not really the goal that you really want because you don't realize what's involved. So it's important to start to understand and figure out what is actually important with regards to that goal for you. Okay, so that was when you hear hoofbeats behind you, don't expect a zebra or a zebra if you're from America, for example. And there's a couple of more people sending love hearts. There's a couple of people that are asking all sorts of inappropriate things. And Trevian has asked, what is my Instagram? So if you do a search for Business Team 6, that is where you'll find me on Instagram. So send me a message on my last post and I'll definitely get in touch with you. I love being able to do that. And somebody asked me, is that sign language? But I am not sure about that one. Let's have a look. Somebody also mentioned not liking coconut oil, even though I spoke about coconut water though. So that was interesting. And let's have a look. So we've done everything that we need to do there. Tomorrow we're going to be reading chapter 29. And this one's called Why the Balancing Force of the Universe is Baloney. And this one's called The Gambler's Fallacy. So hopefully none of you are problematic gamblers, but tomorrow we're going to talk about gambling, which is one of the things that I really like because I teach wealth creation and I run the Cash Flow Club here in Sydney. And so that's a topic that I really enjoy talking about. So the gambler's fallacy tomorrow, we might have a quick chat about the difference between gambling and investing as well, if it leads in that direction. So I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have an amazing day today. And it was great having you all here. So yes, Business Team 6 is the Instagram. Feel free to go and join me over there. And have a great day. And yeah, keep in mind the base rate fallacy for today.